Welcome to C3 In This Together, 30 minutes in our own voice, our series surrounding disabling disabilities. Today, we'll hear from someone with a lived experience who's coping, managing, and navigating disabilities and special needs. My hope throughout this series is that together we will be the generation that ends the silence, the shame, and the stigma as it relates to special needs and disabilities. My hope as well is that as a generation, that we will create an awareness that individuals with disabilities and special needs are differently enabled and that disability does not mean lack of ability. So I want you to lean into that for a moment and just think through what I just said. Again, we want to create an awareness that individuals with disabilities and special needs are differently abled and that disability does not mean a lack of ability. Today, my friends, I am so honored to have our guest with us. His name is Master Bronson Cole. He's the founder of Cole Martial Arts Studios, which helps people to find the best version of themselves. Wow, I love that. When I researched and I saw that and I checked in with him, that was amazing. Again, his goal is to help people find the best version of themselves. And really, that's what we're doing here at C3 In This Together. We want people to find the best version of themselves. So Master Cole began his journey in martial arts, Taekwondo, at the age of 4 under his father, a first-generation master from South Korea. Man, I'm excited about that. Of course, he is a husband and a father of boy and girl twins. Yes, my friends, we're so honored to have him for this series. Master Cole, thank you for being with us and welcome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Great, great. Well, let's jump right in to our session today. And even before we begin talking about our topic, I wanted to ask you, can you briefly tell us what is martial arts and what are some of the myths and the facts surrounding martial arts?
So, martial arts was originally invented for warfare, for defense during battles, and being able to sustain hand-to-hand contact or combat with or without weapons. But today, obviously, it's a little bit different. We see martial arts in things like UFC, where it's become more of a sport. People take martial arts also for self-defense, as it was originally designed for. But also, I think the most common reason people do martial arts now is either for their children as an extracurricular activity, or for even adults if they just want to get in shape, stay in shape, get healthier on a mental or physical level.
Wow. Well, my friends, you heard it from the master himself, right? Master Bronson Cole. He shared with us a little bit more insight to what martial arts is. Of course, many of us who are tuning in and leaning into this, our approach or our thoughts surrounding martial arts usually have to do with Hollywood. So that really helped us there.
Yeah. So now Cobra Kai is a big show.
That is
Karate
right.
Kid coming back around again.
There you go. So I love that you've given us some more insights to that. So let's jump in, my friend. Tell us your story and your journey surrounding disabilities and special needs.
Sure. So I opened my studio on January 2nd, 2006, and this was leading up to experience that I really didn't prepare for. But long story short, I started teaching when I was 15, and my father had a martial arts studio. And during that time, he had a lot of different types of students. Some of them had special needs. Back then, special needs wasn't really a talked about subject. People just maybe would say that person's off, or they're slow. That was a big one. They're slow. So I always had a little bit of experience, or had some experience teaching those types of students with special needs. And then once I opened my own studio, all of that responsibility fell on me. And I clearly remember receiving students with special needs, specifically those who were on the autism spectrum. And, we had a lot of ADHD learning challenges. And I'll just be very blunt and candid with you. At that time, I was kind of scared. I was a little scared of teaching them because I didn't know what I was dealing with. I didn't know what they were going to do. And, but eventually I just bored through it and figured it out. And I came to realize that inside of that person, if you go past all the behaviors that we're not used to, we find a normal person just like us. And the other part of this was I almost felt, I did actually feel pretty sorry for their parents because I just would think, oh my goodness, I don't know how I would be able to deal with that on a day-to-day basis with having a child with special needs. Like, what do they have to do? What about all the tantrums? What about all the aggressive behaviors? And guess what God did? He said, guess what? All this practice and experience that you gained teaching these kids, now you're going to apply it with your son.
Wow.
And we had our son, and daughter, so we have twins, just like you said, about 8.5 years ago. And first 6 months, he was just like his sister. And when you have twins, you get to compare them, right? You can kind of see their development and see like, all right, they're all going at the same level. But then my son started kind of veering off a little on his development, specifically his communication. So my daughter was starting to say a lot of words. He said a little, but then there was this moment where he just stopped and he actually started regressing and not saying anything. Eye contact was no longer there. Again, the words weren't there. And I just had a gut feeling that something was not right. And we ended up taking them to the doctor, and they gave him a diagnosis for autism or being on the autism spectrum. I will never forget that moment of hearing that your son has autism. I mean, it was definitely substantial. It was an experience I'll never forget. And I always compare it to, it's almost like death. Like you're dealing with a death in your family, right? Because you have all of these expectations, all of these hopes and dreams that you have for your son, being able to go out and play basketball together, being able to watch him, again, like for dads, it's like sports. I want to watch him play a sport and excel. And then all of those hopes and dreams just, which I could be completely wrong, just kind of went away. And I just remember feeling extremely first depressed, and then almost a little angry of why me, kind of that self-focused mindset. And but eventually I got over it, as well as my wife. She's the stronger one. I'm the emotional one. And we just got to work and started figuring out what are we going to do to get him to the best version of himself.
Yes. Wow.
But eventually, things got better. Like in the beginning, it was definitely difficult. And I cannot even tell you how many times we've tried to introduce him to a different therapist or teacher. And he got basically, I don't want to say kicked out of a school, but they had to move him to a more intense school. I mean, there were so many different experiences that really just helped us understand who he is. And I mean, he's only 8 now, so it's still going on. But talk about being changed when you have a child. Like if you have a neurotypical child, yeah, you're gonna change either way if you have a child. But when you have a child with special needs, it's a whole different transformation. Yeah, so that's pretty much the story up until now for our son.
Well, Master Cole, I can't tell you thank you enough. And I know there's so many who will be watching. Thank you. And I say that, we got a chance to just spend just a brief moment before, this, our taping. and hopefully you've gotten a sense of my heart. But I can't tell you thank you enough for sharing your story. And as I listened to your story, what came to my mind, my heart was there's so many people who you're releasing to share their own story,
Mhm.
and to be comfortable within their own story. And I want to say that to someone who is watching, that as you've heard Master Cole's story, and you'll hear some more, we want to give you this opportunity to share your story, to live out your story, to let the silence, the shame, and the stigma of your story, let that kind of move forward. Because again, as Master Cole has shared his story, it's giving you hope, it's giving you meaning. You mentioned something that hit my human frame. And again, those of us who are watching, who don't share your story, we can't even imagine what that's like. But you mentioned about it's almost like death.
Mhm.
And that really hit my human frame. And I want to say to someone who maybe that resonated with you, just be aware that you're not alone. And this is why we're doing this series. This is why Master Code does what he does. You're not alone. And we want you to know, if you find yourself in a dark place, that we are coming into that dark place with you and letting you know that we are journeying with you. And we're giving to you as much as we can. If it's just our presence, if it's lending our voice, it's bringing hope, we want to give that to you. So thank you so much. The other thing I want to say before we move forward to our next question is just to give people some insight from the clinical perspective. You mentioned this, that autism is a spectrum, right? And we
Mhm.
want people to know that, those who may not be aware of that, it's a spectrum, meaning that no two individuals will have the same experience, right? In terms of their social experience, their intellectual experience, their emotional experience. And that's why, as clinicians, we understand it that way, because someone watching might say, well, my child doesn't speak a whole lot. And then someone else might say, well, my child speaks a whole lot. And someone else might say, well, my child doesn't interact this way. Keep in mind, again, that it is a spectrum, and that the most important thing, I love it, Master Cole, is that your child or your loved one becomes the best version of themselves. Let's go to the next section or next question. Um, what would you say to someone or a loved one who is managing disabilities and special needs? So speak to the person,
Mhm.
and then speak to family members, loved ones. Uh, yeah, what would you say to them?
So, just quickly piggybacking off of what you said earlier with the spectrum, a saying that I heard that really described it was, if you have met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism,
Hmm.
because every single one of them have very unique challenges. Because I think that the stigma is, if a person is autistic, then they're going to be stemming, or they can't speak, or
Hmm.
I mean it's such a wide spectrum, and I've seen it because we've taught so many different kids now, for 16 years of teaching martial arts, kids and people with autism. So first thing I would tell somebody who's going through this, a parent, is to first get educated and really, just know what they're dealing with, and kind of understand that diagnosis as clearly as possible. And that's one of the things that I'm always trying to do, is trying to figure out what exactly is going on with, that diagnosis that he has, but specifically even biologically, I'm very interested in that too. In the brain, what is lacking, and even what could he be eating differently?
Hmm.
What could he be doing differently? What kind of routine could we change? You'll learn, mom and dad, you will learn, whether you like it or not, you will learn what they like and what they don't like. And I would also say, after you educate yourself, you've got to create positive routines and habits early on. And I
Hmm.
cannot stress this enough,
Wow.
because there are so many people with autism that have terrible diets. All they eat are chicken fingers, french fries, and pizza.
Hmm.
But then you have to think, what if they grew up And what if they existed in a world where that didn't exist? Pizza, French fries, and fried food didn't exist. They wouldn't eat it. What would they eat? Well, who knows? For me and my son, and from my wife and I, we were like, hey, let's get him on a positive routine and habit with his diet, because that'll be all he knows of. So now he only eats, he's a very picky eater, which is a very common symptom of people with autism. They have a really sensitive sensory system, and the textures in foods are very enhanced to them, and they get very particular on what foods they want to eat. So for our son, we thank the Lord Almighty, got him to eat quinoa with broccoli and chicken. I mean, that's like his go-to. Now, does he like to eat it? No, he'd rather eat what we have is nacho bean chips. That's like what he lives on. We also do a smoothie. I make this every single morning for our entire family, and then I put it in bottles for him, so he drinks that with his meals. So he's getting his kale, his spinach, and his fruits, and all those healthy things that he needs to be eating. So that's another thing, just trying to create those positive routines, because people with autism tend to be very much regimented on the routine. So might as well make it a positive one. One of the other suggestions, or even little pieces of advice that has helped me, is to not think too much in the future. First off, we don't know if tomorrow's going to be here, so why worry about it?
Wow.
I think Jesus said that, right? Today has way enough problems to think about. Don't even worry about tomorrow. I got it. So taking it one day at a time, I think is helpful advice. At least it's helped me. Don't think about tomorrow. Don't think about, well, is he going to go to college? Is he going to be able to live on his own? There's no reason of stressing about that. Now, does that mean that you don't start saving money that he might need assistance in the future? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying don't stress about tomorrow. Plan, prepare, and then focus on today. Get through today. Because there are going to be days, like, for example, my son is headbutted. I mean, he loves to headbutt, right? So we have dents and holes in our walls. He's headbutted us, hit us like many, many times. So the focus is today. Let's get through today. And really keep the faith. Like for us, if we weren't believers in Christ, I don't know how we would get through this. I honestly don't know. That's just it. It's God in Christ for us, and that's where our faith lies. Honestly, the other one is making your personal health a priority.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not strong mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, how can you help your child who needs you day and night? And if you aren't going to be there long term for your child, especially when they get older and they still need you, you got to still be living so you can take care of that person. I mean, this is an angel that God gave you, and you're responsible now. And this is something that I really firmly believe, 100%. People with special needs, I would consider them and define them as angels. Why would I say that? I'm not just saying that as some sort of Hallmark greeting card. I'm saying that as they have no intent to sin. They have zero intent. They, like we do, we choose to do the things that we do. They don't. They're just trying to get through the day and figure out how to operate in this foreign world that they were placed in. That's the way I see it. That's what I see in my son. He's just trying to figure out his sensory things, and he's just getting through the day. So I really, I got to add that because I firmly believe it. And again, focus on your personal health so you can be there long-term for your child. And most importantly, be there day to day to give your best version of yourself so you can help your child become the best version of themselves. And lastly, last one here is develop that emotional resilience and fortitude, because this is what I struggle with this all the time with my son. He will test me over and over again. He is much smarter than people realize. And he tests me just like, a neurotypical child will. And I just have to make sure that as a parent, I just stay solid, neutral, and keep those positive emotions. Because as soon as I break And as soon as I lose my temper, I'm telling him I'm losing control as his leader.
Mhm.
And that's the last thing that he needs.
Wow. Well, first of all, I'm smiling because I was looking around to see if I could find an offering plate, so I could pass the offering plate. I want to stay in my clinical role here, but I'm telling you, I'm sitting in my seat and I want to say preach, preacher, and anyhow, I'm just gonna move forward. Let me stay in my clinical experience here, but thank you. You shared just a wealth of resource that I know, I've leaned into and I'm taking away, and so many will be. And I just want to highlight a few. You talked about educating yourself,
Yes.
right? And being aware of what's happening, with your child, with your loved one. You talked about the importance of proper health and diet. That really resonated with me as well. And then what you mentioned about routines and boundaries, and I really want to highlight that when I teach, I do a course with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and we train first responders, police officers, and that's one of the areas that we help to highlight for them, is to be aware of boundaries and routines, and understanding that boundaries and routines are important, as well as clinicians and educators, that for many in the autism spectrum, if you say you're going to meet at noon,
Hmm.
because to meet
Hmm.
12:05 or 11:55 could really be a trigger for that person. So I really want to highlight that, because that's a lot of the work that we do at NAMI as we educate others in understanding those in the autism spectrum, that routine is absolutely key.
Oh,
Try
yeah.
not to deviate from routines, because that can really be a trigger for them and then for you as well. So really important on that. Yeah, let's go to our next question. And you mentioned this as well, but what do you want people to know about managing our mental health? And then also tell us about the mental health benefits of martial arts.
Sure. So, mental health, I think, is such a widely defined term. But for me, I'm just going to speak in my own personal experience. This is something that I've actually struggled with even since I was younger. I'm kind of a anxious person by nature. And I remember when I was younger, I used to just worry about things just out of nowhere. I'm like, why? Where did this come from? Why am I even thinking about this? But as I've gotten older, I've run into some habits. I'm a huge fan of just creating positive habits in my life, in my routine. And these things has really helped me to manage my, I would say, anxiety and sometimes feeling depressed. First one is just stay active.
Mhm.
Like God created us to move. If not, why would we need these bodies that have all these different ways that we can move them? But when we stop using our bodies and then we wonder why we're feeling depressed, I really believe it's our body telling us, get up, get off your butt and move. Like, get up and do something, right? Think about before we had desks, chairs, and computers. What were we doing? We were out there moving and building things. And I think with how culture's shifted so much to technology, I really believe also depression has gone up with it. And just as long as we're moving our bodies, I think that's a huge one. The second one is going back to what I said earlier, is diet. I mean, there's science backed on the things that we're eating will really alter and change the chemistry in our brains. So making sure that we're eating, have a clean diet, staying healthy with that. And one of the biggest ones for me is sleep. Making sure that I am getting enough sleep and keeping that routine. Because as soon as I lack sleep, I start to feel a little bit more on edge. My patience, what I call the patience balloon, every morning you wake up, your patience balloon is like filled up, and then as time goes on, it withers away. My patience balloon is not filled up as it usually is when I have enough sleep. So figuring out how many hours of sleep do you need to feel at 100%. And the other part of that is, like, at nighttime, like I said, I'm worrying about things. I'm starting to stress about things. Just as long as I get into good enough night's sleep, the next morning those things aren't a big deal anymore. And the only thing that changed was sleep. The other option, or maybe not option, but just something to start thinking about is maybe stop thinking about yourself and more serving others. So when
Wow.
we
Yeah.
focus on serving others and being humble and really just trying to help other people around you, I mean, mental health, I think, gets taken care of really quickly when we're doing that and making that a habit. And then with martial arts really helps a student and a person develop this focused and disciplined mindset. And it's done through a proper martial arts culture where everybody is behaving in that way.
Mhm.
You are the sum, you are the average of the 5 people you are around the most. So when you are surround yourself with people who are on board with that disciplined, focused mindset of a martial artist, and you're with them a couple times a week consistently for years, I'm like, how do you not change? When you're looking your left and right and they're standing straight and they're not messing around, their eyes are not looking around, they're not goofing off, especially for kids. I mean, I've seen this thousands of times, which is why I'm so passionate about what we do, is that you get that focus and discipline mindset. And it really also comes down to this humility and respectful attitude. Like we say, sir, ma'am. I know you're from Georgia. My wife's from Georgia too. So we're huge on that. In our household, my wife will get angry with my daughter if she doesn't say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. But that very much aligns with the Taekwondo black belt mindset of everybody deserves respect, and also just always being humble so you're teachable.
Wow. Good. Wow. A wealth of resources. Oh man, so much to lean into. But again, I want to highlight just a few things you mentioned that resonated with me and perhaps will resonate with others as well. And you mentioned this previously about the importance of caregivers taking care of their own mental health. In
Mhm.
the work that I do as a clinician, and with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, we often make reference to what happens when you get on the to take a flight and they begin to talk to you about the safety features. And one of the things they will say, and we're all familiar with this, they'll say, in the event that we hit turbulence, the flight gets scary, so to speak, that a mask will drop from the ceiling. If you're traveling with a little child, please put on your masks first, and then you can help others. And that's the picture we always want to leave, particularly for caregivers. If your mental health is not well, then certainly you won't be able to come alongside those that you're caring for. And again, we lean into what you've been saying. If we don't become the best version of ourselves, then certainly we cannot help someone else to become the best version of themselves. So we really want to encourage you to take care of your mental health. If your mental health is not well, then your emotional health will not be well, your physical health, your spiritual health will not be well. And again, you mentioned the importance of exercising. Uh,
Mhm.
and we see that in the work that we do as clinicians. Neurobiology tells us that when we exercise just 15 to 30 minutes a day, and of course, you're the expert in this, I'm not, but from a clinical perspective and a neurobiology perspective, there's so many benefits. It decreases anxiety and depression. The moment you begin to exercise, it triggers the release of those neurotransmitters in your body. Those neurotransmitters, of course, are your chemical messengers, right? And what they tell us is when you're exercising, what you're actually doing is almost like you're getting a chemical bubble bath, and I love that, right? So you're beginning
Yeah.
to wash your brain, and that decreases anxiety and depression and mental health conditions, and the list goes on and on. It decreases aging, it creates new cells, neurogenesis. It's just a wealth of benefits. I will say this before we move forward, because a lot of times when I talk with parents, Master Cole, and you'll attest to this, they will say, Well, I can't exercise because I've got children and we've got such a full life. And one of the things, I've learned as having a 2-year-old, she just turned 2 just last week, is what helps is if I can integrate her into my exercise routine, that really helps. So get her walking with me, get her moving with me. So anyhow, let's go to the next question. What do you want people to know as we begin to wrap up? What do you want people to know about disability and special needs awareness and the need for what we're doing today?
Sure, I think it's beneficial just to know that everyone has a challenge or obstacle in life. We have people, people obviously have medically diagnosed disabilities and special needs, but really, we all have something we're working on, or we all have something that we have to battle. And I think it's just important to know that everybody is going through something. And second, it's just learn and understand those disabilities of people around you. I mean, it will take you 5 minutes to Google it and just maybe understand it better. Because then, for example, if you run into somebody who has autism or is autistic, then maybe don't touch them, or how you should speak to them. Like, they're very much matter of fact. So don't use sarcasm with them because it's just not effective communication. So I think I would just urge people just to do a little bit of self-education, because it keeps becoming more and more around us. What is the increase in diagnoses for people with autism? I mean, it keeps going up and up and up, right? And especially with ADD, ADHD, all those different learning disabilities as well. I mean, I think it's pretty enlightening to at least kind of put a framework or a clear understanding, a better understanding of what we're dealing with, because I really believe in life, the first step to really finding the best version of yourself is self-actualization and realization, and knowing what God gave you. What are the cards that you're dealt? And then work from that. And just on a little side topic here is I've really am very interested in the brain and behavior and psychology. I love it. I mean, it's so fascinating to me. It just shows you how amazing God is and incredible his creation is. And I ran across something called neuroplasticity.
Plasticity, yeah, I love
Neuroplasticity.
that. Hmm.
This is exciting news.
Yes.
I mean, this is amazing, because no longer can I say I was born like that.
Hmm.
No, you can actually physically change the wire, like how your brain is working through methods, through repetition, through practice and habits. I mean, you can actually change the brain, which is kind of new, isn't it? It's like that's kind of recent news. So it's hopeful for people who might struggle with different things naturally. Well, if you work on it, I think you can maybe modify it to your favor.
Oh, I love that. Man, I tell you, I'm excited because you've got me on the mental health piece, and you've got me on the clinical neurobiology. That's my passion, talking about how the brain impacts your body, your emotions, and ultimately your behavior. And you mentioned neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
And again, that's we understand that clinically, that you can rewire, literally rewire and change your brain through things like through things like the way that you think, through thankfulness, through what you mentioned, through serving others. We've found on exercise, all of those things, your faith, whatever your faith is. I know we've mentioned faith here, but whatever your faith is, the way that we say it in clinical terms, it's not a specific faith tradition when we're in clinical terms, but it's what inspires you and what causes you to soar, right? All of that. Another one that I want to throw at you is this one about epigenetics, and I'm sure you've heard of that. Yeah, this idea of how your experiences shape your behavior, right? But you can actually change your genes, right? It's called putting genes. Anyhow, listen, we're gonna have to stay in touch after this because
I love that. Yeah.
we're on the same page here. But
You can turn it off. Isn't it basically you can turn your genes on and off?
Yeah, you could turn your genes, and more so, it's actually the way that we understanding is you could put another gene on top of the gene. So that's how it's understood with epigenetics, that through your behavior, through behavior modification, your thinking, you're actually putting another gene on top of the gene by saying, listen, I don't have to let my DNA determine my destiny. Man.
Amen.
Well, my friend, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much again for your story. Thank you for your passion, for your heart. I know so many are going to be inspired, and so many are going to be helped through this. But before we begin to wrap it up, how can people reach out to you? How can people connect with you?
Sure. They can always go on our website, and it's thecoma.com, thekoma.com. You can directly email me at masterco@thecoma.com, masterko@thekoma.com.
Great. Wow. And of course, you have a YouTube channel.
Yep. We're on
Which is
YouTube,
amazing.
LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm on Facebook as well. Like, you can reach out to me any way you want. Again, I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah. And again, thank you for being willing to share your story and give away what you have, right? That speaks so much to who you are. And as I read, just your biography and what you had put in Facebook and YouTube, you talked about that you want to connect with people, particularly with families who are in this journey. And I can't thank you enough. I've learned so much from you in just these last 30 minutes. Thank you again. My friends, thank you for being with us as we begin to wrap this up. Master Cole, I felt like a great way to close this session, and we'll do this as we close this out, is to share a clip of you teaching your son Kyson during a private martial arts session. So we're going to include that at the end of our video. It was just so amazing to watch you in your journey with him. I know so many are going to be inspired by that. So my friends, we want you to stay tuned in at the end of our session here. Again, you're going to see an amazing session, amazing clip, just about maybe three or so minutes of Master Cole and his son Kyson during a private martial arts session. We speak well wishes and blessings to your family, Master Cole, to Kyson, that he continues, and your daughter, to develop the best version of themselves. My friends, again, thank you for being with us. For more resources about special needs and mental health, as always, I invite you to visit our website, c3inthis.together.com. Also, if you were impacted by this video, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, C3 In This Together, for more videos like this. We also want to encourage you to share this video, comment on this video, and please let us know how this video impacted you, so that together we can bring hope to others. This is really my heart for this 30 Minutes in Our Own Voice series. Let's be the generation that shares hope. Also, I want to remind you and encourage you to take our 21-day Thankfulness Challenge, as well as our NextGen Hope Challenges. My friends, thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next time for 30 Minutes in Our Own Voice, our amazing series. Thank you again, Master Cole.
Thank you, sir.
Tyson, stand up. Let's go. All right. Try this. Do this. Circle. Go. Over. Over. Go like this. Over. Okay? Go. Over. Nope. Try again. Nope. 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 Stand up. Circle. Good. Do the other one. Over. Yes. Do the other one. Nope. This foot, go this way. Yes. Try to go over. See? Good. Ready? Go. Over it. Try again. Yeah. Good foot position. Go. Do this foot. No. Go. No, no. Go. Good. Do the other foot. Good. Again. Again. Nope. Good. Let's do the other foot. 3 times. 3, 2, nope, nope, 2, 1. Good job. Good. Good.